Don't touch me. He coughed harshly, his pale face crunching in discomfort as he shoved Vine's hand away. But you have a high fever. Please let me help you. Her voice trembled, desperation lacing her words as she held the wet towel tightly. No. Another rough cough escaped his lips. Sepuk is on her way. She will treat me. I don't need your pity. She flinched at his words, her lips parting as if to say something, but the rejection left her speechless. Finally, she nodded slowly. Okay, her heart clenched painfully, but she forced herself to step back. As she sat on the couch, the bowl of water stood in her lap. Her gaze flickered to Jungkook. He looked weak, vulnerable, even as he lay back on the bed. Yet his words echoed in her mind, each one a sharp blade piercing her chest. Why won't he let me touch him? It's been 8 months, 8 months of being his wife, and I have never even been allowed to care for him. Her thoughts spiraled as she nervously watched him pick up his phone, the ringtone shattering the silence in the room. Jungkook pressed the speaker button, his voice tight and strained as he spoke. Please come, I. Sebyuk's sharp voice cut him off mid sentence. I can't come. My mother's ill. Take your medicine and stop calling me. You're disturbing her rest. Bye. The call ended abruptly, the harsh beeping sound lingering in the air. Jungkook stood at the phone for a moment, his jaw tightening. He didn't look at Wine, but instead turned over and pretended to sleep. Slowly, she stood, her hands trembling as she dipped the towel back into the cool water. With quiet steps, she approached him, carefully placing the damp cloth on his burning forehead. His eyes fluttered open and he looked at her with a mix of irritation and something unreadable. Just as he was about to speak, she interrupted him, her soft voice firm for once. Please don't yell, your throat hurts. I know, just relax. For a moment, Jungkook said nothing, his gaze locking with hers. In her eyes, he saw nothing but pure concern, no malice, no pity, just a genuine desire to care for him. It unsettled him, especially as his mind drifted to Sepyok. Sepyok, who always had excuses, who only liked the status his name brought her. And yet here Wine was, the woman he had rejected over and over, sitting by his side without hesitation. Wine broke the silence, placing a hand on his arm briefly before retreating. I will bring your medicine. She returned moments later, helping him sit up just enough to swallow the pills. After ensuring he was settled, she watched as his breathing evened out, signaling he had finally fallen asleep. A faint smile tugged at her lips, bittersweet and fleeting. He doesn't love me, but I will keep taking care of him. It's all I can do. With that thought, she quietly gathered the bowl and left the room, leaving him to rest. The next morning at 10 a.m., Jungkook stayed awake, though he kept his eyes shut when he heard the soft creak of his bedroom door. A familiar fragrance wafted through the air, one he instantly recognized. It was her, his wife. She moved quietly, her footsteps light as she approached him. He felt the genuine press of her soft hand against his forehead, checking his temperature. Thank God it's gone. Her whispered relief was audible, faced with a warmth that made his chest tighten. Before he could react, he felt her lips graze his forehead in a fleeting kiss. She pulled away as silently as she had come, not wanting to wake him. The door closed softly behind her. The room fell silent again, but Jungkook slowly opened his eyes, his fingers brushing against the spot where her lips had touched. His brow furrowed as conflicting thoughts swirled in his mind. Why is she pretending that she really cares? His voice was low, almost inaudible. As his heart betrayed him with an unfamiliar flutter, he shook his head, trying to push away the thought, but his phone buzzed. Pulling his attention, a message from Cebu lit up the screen. How are you, Cook? He stared at the message for a moment, feeling a strange reluctance to reply. But habit won over and he tapped back. I'm good. How's your mother? The reply came almost instantly. She's fine. Leave her. Let's meet today at Lot Ward Mall. Okay, shaking off his lingering thoughts, Jungkook got up and began getting ready. By the time he made his way downstairs, the aroma of breakfast greeted him. In the kitchen, Wine stood by the stove, her movements careful and practiced as she plated the food. Come, everything's ready. Her tone was soft, inviting, though she didn't meet his eyes for long. Jungkook sighed, walking to the dining table and taking a seat. The moment he took a bite, his expression softened, though he didn't let it show. The food was delicious, better than anything he would had in a long time. There was truth to the saying that the way to a man's heart was through his stomach. But his heart, no, he won't allow that. Wine sat across from him, nibbling on her food nervously. After a moment, she cleared her throat. I wanted to ask for permission to go out. I don't have many clothes and I would like to buy some. Will you come with me? Jungkook's gaze was cold as he looked at her, his dark eyes piercing, but something in her tone or perhaps her hesitation kept him from saying no. Fine. Her face lit up instantly, her lips curling into a small, excited smile. Thank you. She jumped up and hurried off to change, leaving him slightly bemused by her reaction. A few minutes later, she returned dressed neatly, a simple yet charming outfit that suited her perfectly. As she approached, she held out a tie in her hands. Here is your tie. He left it in the room. Chunguk paused, feigning a cuff to cover his reaction. He stepped closer and bent slightly, silently allowing her to fix the tie for him. Her delicate fingers worked swiftly, her movements careful yet practiced. He hated trying it himself. It always left him frustrated. When she finished, she took a small step back, looking up at him briefly. They're all done. He didn't say a word, merely adjusting his cufflinks as he walked past her. Wine followed her lips, twitching with a faint smile as she fell into step behind him. The mall's grandeur was undeniable, with chandeliers sparkling above and polished floors reflecting every moment. Wine walked behind Jungkook as they entered, her eyes darting to the luxurious surroundings. Before she could say a word, someone rushed toward Jungkook and threw her arms around him. Oh, come here, my love! Her excited exclamation rang through the air, but her smile faltered as soon as she noticed Wine standing behind him. Why did you bring her? Her voice turned sharp, eyes narrowing in Wine's direction. She wanted to buy some clothes, he replied coldly, showing no emotion. Oh, okay, let's go then. She said, quickly recovering her sweet tone as she clung to Jungkook's arm, pulling him toward an upscale clothing store. Wine followed quietly, her heart tightening with every passing moment. She bit her lip, fighting back the string of tears as Sabio giggled and picked out traveling dresses, flaunting them in front of Jungkook, who didn't seem to object. Wine turned away, deciding to look for something more elegant and modest. Her eyes lit up as she found a simple yet beautiful dress on display. She smiled, running her fingers over the fabric, but when she peeked at the price tag, her smile disappeared. It was far beyond what she could afford. Sorry, I can't buy you. Maybe next time, okay? She gently tapped the dress as if consoling it. then walked away to search for something more adorable. Jungkook, who had been distracted by Sebyuk, noticed one small moment from across the room. While Sebyuk disappeared into the changing room, Jungkook walked to the dress, his jaw tightening when he saw the price. It wasn't expensive for him, not even close. He signaled to a store attendant. Pack this for my wife. The attendant nodded, swiftly wrapping the dress and placing it in a sleek bag. Jungkook took it and went to find wine, only to stop when he saw her through the glass window of a nearby section. A young man stood near her, his expression animated as he called out to her. Oh my god, Wine, you're here. How have you been? Wine took a step back when he leaned forward, avoiding his attempt at a hug. Oh, sorry, I'm married now. I'm not comfortable with that. Obviously, why would you be? Your husband is way more handsome than me. He pouted dramatically, pretending to cry, which made Wine laugh. They started chatting casually, catching up on old times. From a distance, Jungkook watched the interaction, his expression unreadable. But something stirred within him. She really didn't let her male friend even touch her because of me. She's loyal, but Sebyok. His throat tightened as memories of Sebyuk's touch filled his mind. A bitter realization began to creep in. Leaving wine behind, Jungkook headed toward the changing rooms to find Sebyok. As he approached, he heard her voice from one of the stalls. She was speaking on the phone. Her tone low but sharp. I told you, John, I will leave Jungkook once I get what I want. Can't your uh wait a little longer? It's not like I enjoy being with him. Jungkook froze outside the door. His hands clenched into fists as her words pierced through him like knives. You have been saying that for months. I'm getting tired of waiting. Just be patient. Once I get the money I need, we will free to do whatever we want. Don't ruin this for me. Jungkook's heart sank as every word confirmed his worst fears. Sebek wasn't just disloyal, she had been using him all along. The realization of his wife's quiet loyalty and Sebyuk's betrayal hit him like a tidal wave. His chest felt heavy as he stepped back, his mind a whirlwind of emotions he didn't yet know how to name. Wine stood at the counter, carefully placing two dresses she had picked out. She hesitated before pulling out her wallet, calculating how much she could afford. But before she could pay, a hand suddenly reached past her, tapping a sleek black card against the machine. She turned in shock, her eyes meeting Jungkook's cold expression. You didn't have to. It's fine. His voice was distant, cutting off any protest she might have had. He handed the bag to Wine without another word and walked away. Wine stood frozen for a moment, clutching the bag tightly. She bit her lip, unsure how to feel. While Sebyuk emerged from the store carrying several shopping bags, her arms weighed down by the 13 dresses she had bought without a second thought. They headed to a luxurious restaurant in Sebyuk's insistence. Wine walked slightly behind them, her head lowered, feeling like an outsider. Jungkook had not said a word since the store, and she couldn't shake off the weight of Sebyuk's presence. Once seated, a waiter approached to take their orders. Sebyuk was the first to speak, her voice annoyingly cheerful. I will have an ice cream sundae. Extra chocolate syrup, please. Jungkook leaned back in his chair, glancing briefly at the waiter. A cold drink for me. But before the waiter could write it down, Wine interrupted softly. Her voice laced with concern. No, please cancel his order. Instead, bring him ginger tea. Jungkook's eyes widened in surprise as he turned to look at her. Her expression was calm but firm. Why? You had a fever last night and your throat still isn't well. It's better not to drink anything cold. For a moment, Jungkook didn't say anything. He simply nodded, his expression unreadable. Fine, order something for yourself too. I'm fine with just a simple juice. She replied quietly, avoiding his gaze. Sebyok's eyes narrowed as she watched their exchange. Jealousy flared within her, and her lips curled into a sneer. Of course, she would only order juice. It's fitting for someone who can't even afford to buy her own clothes. Wan looked down, her cheeks flushing in embarrassment, but before Chunga could say anything, Sebyuk pulled a stack of papers from her bag and slammed them onto the table. Here, that was her. The air in the room grew tense as Jungkook stared at the papers. Sebyuk pushed them closer, her tone demanding. And this joke of a marriage and be with me. That's what we both want, isn't it? Jungkook's jaw tightened. He picked up the papers, staring at them for a moment. Sebyuk's much smile widened, thinking she had won, until the sound of tearing filled the air. She gasped as Jungkook ripped the papers in half and tossed the pieces onto the table. Why would you do that? Why? His voice was low but laced with anger as he leaned forward, his piercing gaze locking onto her. Do I look like a joke to you? You cheat behind my back and then you accept me to stay with you. Last night, when I needed you the most, you were not there. But she was. He motioned toward Wine, whose eyes widened in shock. Jungkook's voice grew louder, his words cutting through the room like a knife. She is the one who cared for me, worried about me, and stayed by my side without expecting anything in return. But you, all you care about is my money. You think that's enough to keep me? Let me tell you something. Sepyok, money isn't everything. Sepyok's face turned pale as she stammered, trying to defend herself. I didn't mean it like that. Enough. He stood abruptly, glaring down at her. You disgust me. You used me, lied to me, and now you expect me to throw away someone who's been loyal and genuine for you? You're not worth it. Sebyuk's eyes filled with tears as she realized her plan had backfired. She reached out to him, but he snapped back, his voice cold and final. Don't contact me again, we're done. With that, he turned to Wine, who was still sitting in stunned silence. Let's go. Wine hesitated before nodding, quickly standing up and following him out of the restaurant. Sibik was left behind, her face a mix of anger and humiliation. The car came to a smooth halt outside a small bakery. Wine glanced curiously at Jungkook as he stepped out and walked inside. Moments later, he returned with a beautifully decorated orange cake, its sweet scent wafting into the car. Wine's heart sank as she thought, he still loves her. Maybe this is for Sepyok. She swallowed the lump in her throat and stayed silent for the rest of the ride home. At home, Wine carefully changed into one of the simple dresses she had bought earlier. Though modest, it fit her perfectly. Highlighting her natural beauty, she ran her fingers through her hair before stepping out of the bathroom. Inside the room, Chunguk was seated on the couch, his head resting against the back as if lost in thought. How am I looking? Chunguk's eyes snapped open and his gaze landed on her. For a moment, he was speechless. She looked breathtaking, like a vision of elegance and innocence wrapped into one. But he quickly masked his emotions, clearing his throat. It's looking fine. One smile faltered. She looked down, feeling a wave of disappointment. She turned, intending to retreat back into the bathroom, but his voice stopped her. Wait. She turned slowly, her eyes questioning. He held out a bag toward her. Wear this dress at 6 p.m. Don't be late. Curious, she opened the bag and gasped softly. Inside was the same dress she had admired at the mall, the one she couldn't afford. Why did you just be ready and don't come out of the room until I call you? With that, he stood and walked out, leaving her staring after him with a mix of confusion and surprise. At precisely 6 p.m., Wine came downstairs wearing the elegant dress. It fit her like it was made for her, flowing gracefully with each step she took. The house was dark and the silence made her uneasy. She hesitated at the top of the stairs, her hand gripping the railing. Suddenly she missed a step and felt herself falling, but strong arms catch her from behind. Her breath hissed as the lights flickered on her, illuminating Jungkook's face mere inches from hers. His dark eyes stared into hers, concern evident in their depths. Be careful. He steadied her on her feet, and her gaze shifted from him to the living room. She gasped. The room was beautifully decorated with colorful balloons and soft fairy lights. A table stood at the center, adorned with the orange cake she had seen earlier. What is this? Happy birthday! Her eyes widened in shock. What's the date today? It's September 28th. She blinked rapidly, trying to process his words. Oh, wait, what? That means it's my birthday. Jungkook chuckled at her childlike surprise, his laughter softening the tension between them. She turned to him, her eyes glistening with emotions. You remembered? I didn't even realize. Of course, I remembered. His voice was quieter now, tinged with something deeper. He motioned for her to sit as he lit the candles on the cake. After cutting the cake, Jungkook handed Wine a slice, but she hesitated. The room was filled with warmth from the candles and lights, yet there was a lingering tension between them. She took a small bite, her thoughts clouded. Jungkook walked over, holding a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a delicate necklace, a crescent moon pendant that shimmered under the soft light. This is for you. Wine stared at it, her fingers brushing against the pendant. It was beautiful, thoughtful even, but her heart was still weighed down by the pain he had caused. Why are you doing all this? Her voice was soft, but the question carried a sting. Jungkook looked at her, his brows frowned slightly as he sat down across from her. His voice dropped, steady but laced with emotion. Because I need you to know how sorry I am, Wine. She avoided her gaze, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. Sorry won't change what you have done, Jungkook. You have treated me like I was nothing. I have spent nights wondering if I would even be good enough, but I'm done. I can't just forget everything. Her words hit him like a blow, but he remained composed, nodding as if he knew this moment would come. You're right, I don't deserve your forgiveness. Not after everything I have put you through. But you deserve to hear the truth. Her eyes flickered toward him, and he took that as his cue to continue. I was forced into this marriage. My parents decided it for me, and I let my anger consume me. I blamed you for everything because it was easier than facing reality. I was selfish, blind to how much you have done for me. His voice faltered, but he quickly regained control. When I was with Sebyok, I thought she was the one. I thought she cared about me. But last night, he clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. You were there when I needed someone the most. Sebyok wasn't. She never cared about me. And now I see that the person who truly cared was standing in front of me all along. Wine's throat tightened, but she stayed silent. She wanted to believe him, but the wounds were still fresh. You're only saying this because you saw Sebyuk's true colors. If she had not shown her greed, would you even be talking to me right now? Her questions hung heavily in the air, and for a moment Jungkook looked genuinely lost. Then he leaned forward, his voice steady and raw. I won't lie to you. I don't know when I would have realized it. But I know this, I have been wrong about everything. And it's not because of what Sebuk did, it's because of what you have done. You cared for me when I was sick, supported me when I didn't deserve it, and tonight you remembered something as small as ginger tea because of my throat. I have never had that kind of care in my life, fine, not from anyone. Her heart wavered, but she stayed firm. That doesn't erase the way you treated me. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I won't stop trying to earn it. He stood walking to the table and grabbing the cake knife. He carefully cut another piece and brought it back to her, kneeling in front of her. I'm not asking for forgiveness tonight, but can we at least start over? I will do better wine, I swear it. She looked at him kneeling before her with a vulnerability she had never seen before. Slowly, she took the cake from his hand, her expression softening slightly. Actions speak louder than words, Jungkook. Then watch me prove it to you. Later that evening, as they sat together in the glow of the fairy lights, he handed her the necklace once more. This time, she allowed him to place it around her neck, his fingers lingering for a moment. Happy birthday, Wine. Thank you for giving me a chance to fix this. Though her heart wasn't fully healed, something in his tone told her that this time he truly meant it. It wasn't the grand gestures or the cake that moved her, it was the sincerity in his eyes, and for now, that was enough to let her.